Hey guys, said it's a fucking other Metsy Monday. Whoa, 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 wish it was Sunday. Fucking Sunday. Hope we are all well. Yet another day, alive and healthy. Hopefully. So, years ago, well, for thousands and thousands of years, we've lived in small communities. We lived in small communities. We didn't have access to all the things that we do now, agriculture, technology and stuff. So we've developed our psyche and how we communicate with people and how many people we can communicate with and have relationships with, developed to be no more than maybe 25 people maximum. And what that allowed us to do is always carry a sense of social esteem. You know, if you were the craftsman, or if you were the joiner or the carpenter or whatever, you were the carpenter. You was the main person who did that, and it carried a lot of social esteem with it. You got to ride on the endorphin high of that. You might be the most prettiest girl in the village, and you would be the prettiest girl in the village. And everyone had a certain role within that community. And what's really started to happen over the last maybe 5,000 years is that we've started congregating in bigger groups, eventually that became cities. And if you're someone who's, you know, we're all great people and great individuals. We're all one in a million. But if you're a one in a million and you live in London, there's 20 of you. So you're not that rare. And if you live in the UK and you're one in a million, there's 70 of you. And we're starting to, what we do is we're getting distracted by all of the things that don't really affect our lives, that start to make us feel a little bit more worthless and a bit more insecure, because there's so many more beautiful people out there. There's so many more better relationships than what I've got. There's so many more of better at everything than me. You know, I'm no good and everyone else is amazing, and this is the kind of world that we're starting to live in now. And I always say, if you really want to be an effective person, your circle of to focus on your own circle of influence, meaning the things that you can actually affect, right? It requires discipline. It requires you to be able to focus and not be too distracted. And discipline is really getting something later on and improving the later on version of you at the expense of the now version of you. Going fishing, Nate Silver. Elaborate on that, buddy. What do you mean? It reminded me of Homer Simpson. There's an episode of The Simpsons where Homer drinks a pint of, or a jar of vodka and mayonnaise, and he says, "This is a problem for future Homer," and he's like, and then he says, "I don't envy that guy," and then he bangs it back, and this is what we all do. We all put ourselves now before our future selves, but our future selves is arguably more important because we know we're all right now, but we don't know if that person is going to be all right. But we're the same person, and we've got to be intentional with our own well-being, mental well-being, just like we have to be intentional with our fitness. We have to be intentional with our diets. We have to be intentional with our mental well-being. And one of the biggest problems... All right, I look like a fisherman. Do you think I look like a fisherman? One of the biggest problems that we have at the moment, a true social dilemma, if you will, borrowing the term from that new Netflix documentary, which I really recommend that everyone watch. It's free content. It's free. It's the free stuff that we consume online. And most of the things that we consume online your Facebooks, your Instagrams, your YouTubes, etc. If the saying goes, if you don't know what the product is, you are the product. And what these companies do is they give us things for free, like this platform, for example, so that they can collect our data, and then they can sell our data so that we can get advertised at by anyone, by companies, by governments to make votes for their party or whoever. And this is why one of the reasons, if you watch the documentary, it goes on about it. There's so much polarization, because the more that we watch, the more that we consume of a certain type of content, cat videos, conspiracy videos, football videos, porn, whatever it is that you like to consume, the algorithms, the tech companies, the machines that run the tech companies, they think that you want to see more of that, so they give you more of that. So you eventually become in this bubble of just seeing almost all of the same stuff. And we are really like a pawn for the governments and the tech companies, and we don't even realise it. There's people who I know, there's people I'm connected with on Facebook who know more about American politics than they know about English politics. The reason why conspiracies get so popular is because it gets to a point where everyone is just wanking each other off about the same little story, because the algorithms have just been feeding these people the same thing that they think they need to see all the time, when in fact there's so many other versions of it, but you only see your version, and everyone you know sees your version because you're all interested in the same shit, and it's because the algorithms are feeding you the same stories. And it's funny, and we've got to try to be intentional with looking for counter arguments so that we get the best kind of truth. Because ultimately, humans, people, me and you, watching or listening to this, we all have the same hopes and dreams, really. You know, pretty much, generally, people are decent. Generally, people want the best kind of life they can get. Generally, people want to be healthy. Generally, people want their family to be happy. Generally, they might they've got hobbies and they've got passions. And we all are really very similar. Slightly different, but very similar. But we get separated over the most trivial bollocks, and it's trivial shit like, who do you want to win on the American election? You know, is the world flat or is it round? Just stuff that's not really, to you, it's not really that important, really, is it? I see people who are spiritual. I feel like it's really sad when I see this. There's people who I know are very, very spiritually inclined, and I can see them getting disillusioned and almost ill with the amount of shit that they're getting fed, because they're spiritual people. They're connected to the world. They feel like they have a connection to the world, and they have. They have. But all the algorithms, all the stuff that they're consuming on Facebook and stuff like that, because of the lockdown, so they spend more time on social media. The algorithms show them more and more riots, show them more and more crap. They think the world's falling in on them, and they end up going mental, because they think, wow, what kind of world am I living in? They're being tricked. Spiritual people who are connected to the earth, they're connected to the universe, they're connected to God. They're being tricked by algorithms, and it's sad. People who are sensitive are getting overwhelmed. People who are naturally sensitive in the disposition. You know, my missus is very sensitive. Some people just absorb the world around them more than others. These people are getting overwhelmed by the bollocks that they're getting exposed to on the phones, on YouTube, etc. And the thing is, a lot of the stuff they get exposed to, you know, let's, for example, say conspiracies, for example, or news. It don't matter, any kind of story they're getting exposed to. Typically, it's negative, because that's what sells. If it bleeds, it leads, you know, you want to click on it, etc. There is truth in a lot of it. So, but the problem with it is, you get fed the same shit, and you end up getting satiated on the same diet. Chocolate cake's nice, but we don't want to eat chocolate cake for every single meal. And the more of the same shit that we see, and the more we keep, the more that we keep justifying our own thoughts on something, our minds will narrow, and minds start to narrow. So where we once might have been open-minded, or an open-minded kind of person, most people generally think they're open-minded. Most people, in fact, are. But the more of the same shit that they consume, and the more cookies that they accept and social media stuff that they watch, then the mind's getting more and more and more narrow and closed because they're getting fed the same shit. And they start to develop a real cognitive bias over what their opinions are. And then the algorithms will link them up with people who think similar. And then they have conversations with people who think similar. Before you know it, it's created this massive separation between two different parties of people. Call them left, call them right, call them black, call them white, whatever you want to call them. But there's massive separations over the most trivial bollocks. Because the algorithms, the things that run this thing, the things that run YouTube, etc., they're so clever. They're more clever than us. And, you know, when we accept cookies, the companies will sell our data. It's an unlimited business model. The more accurate data they have of us, the more money that they will earn, because they'll give us better and better adverts, and they'll be able to sell more accurately to us. Even the books that we read on our Kindles and on our phones and stuff, the articles, it reads us. They read our reactions to these things, so they even know what we start to like more than we even know how much that we like them. We might prefer brunettes to blondes and don't even realise it, but Google knows, because our eyes linger over a brunette more than it lingers over a blonde. And at first, when I learnt all this stuff, I thought, well, what's so bad about that? The perfect adverts. We're going to get exposed to the perfect adverts. I'd much rather see a Star Wars advert than I'd rather see a makeup advert, for example. But this is the problem. And it's like, to put it into religious terms, the devil, it's like a temptation thing. The thing that you don't need the most is the most tempting. And we end up buying and buying and buying and consuming and consuming and consuming. And it's just not healthy long term. Like I say, you become satiated with it. Your mind gets closed. Those days, especially like on Sunday, I had an hangover. So you scroll. You know when you have a scroll day? Have you ever had a scroll day before? When you don't want to think about anything. You're just tired. You're hungover. You might be ill. Whatever it is. You're just not in a position to want to think about much. So you have a scroll day. And you can't stop going back to that timeline. And all that's happening is you're just feeding the beast more and more and more. And we have to start to learn to be mindful of what we're doing. We need to limit the time on our phones. Put a time limit. I have two online businesses really, and I'm a networker by nature. I'm in two bands. I've got two online businesses. I need to be intentional when I use social media. I don't just typically sit there and scroll. So I have a time limit, and I have to do all the necessary things within that time. I recommend that you do it as well. Use social media intentionally. Know your own weaknesses. Know when you, like for example, I know that I scroll more when I'm hungover, so put systems in place to stop me from wanting to do that. Read paperback books rather than reading Kindles and reading iPads. Read something that can't read you back. Talk to people on the phone. Talk to people in person. Not always messaging. The amount of people who I try to make it quite difficult to get hold of me. I want you to be able to ring me, and if people don't ring me, I'm not that interested about ringing you back. Basically, this is typically how I work, because I've got more priorities with what's in front of me. So I find I talk to some people online, and they're not that bothered about. They want to stay in a message feed, and I find that this is a younger thing. If you're a younger person, typically they want to stay in a message feed. They don't want to talk. But it's I think we're losing not only are we losing a skill of how to write letters and how to write, we're losing a skill of how to communicate effectively one-to-one, and talking to people on the phone rather than messaging. I feel like is a big deal. Yeah, there's a place for messaging, but talk on the phone. Forget stop being worried about being rejected. You're not a little kid where your dad's rejecting you anymore. You're an adult. Speak like an adult, or communicate like an adult. But the biggest of all, and the thing that I started with, and I'll finish with, is pay for your content if you can. Free content is a problem. If it's behind a paywall, there's a reason for it. You're choosing You are choosing the content that you consume. You're in charge of your own mind. Even things like Netflix. Yeah, all right. There might be loads of crap on there, but at least you're not getting hammered with adverts, and it's not monitoring what you do. It's kind of a enclosed space. Is Netflix, Spotify, podcasts, articles, books, Audible, things like this. I know that it's an expense where once it was free. I get that, but it's better for your well-being in the long run if you're willing to pay for the content rather than just... Even the BBC's license fee. People don't like paying the license fee, but at least the BBC are relatively neutral, aren't they? You know, which can't be said for a lot of the bigger companies. Yes, they might not be perfect, but at least they're a little bit neutral. So because if you're not, and you're taking everything for free, you're being guided like a true sheep. You are being a true guided sheep down the path where they want you to go, into the land of consumerism, and that is one place where you don't want to be. That is one place where you will become depressed. A little bit of a depressing one today, wasn't it? Anyway, listen, I want you to have a really, really good rest of the week. If you start feeling a little bit sad, it's fine. It's absolutely normal. Please speak to someone. Don't worry about talking about how vulnerable you feel, how sad you might feel, how upset you feel. It's fine. We all have these thoughts. If you want to reach out to me and have a chat, I'm more than happy to chat to you about it. I sometimes need to have these conversations as well. Maybe we can help each other out. I love you, and I'll see you later on. Bye.